You cannot add more days to your life. Technically, you can influence the number of days you have depending on how you live, how you eat, how you train, how you sleep, how you manage stress, and how seriously you treat your health. But philosophically, that is not the first question. The deeper question is not only how long will I live, the deeper question is how much life am I putting into the days I already have? Because a longer life without directed energy is not automatically a better life. More time does not mean more evolution. More days do not mean more value. A person can live many years and still repeat the same year over and over with different weather. So the work is not just to add days to your life. The work is to add life, force, direction, and value to your days. That requires leverage. Leverage is the quiet law behind unfair advantage. It is not always loud. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes leverage is a better system. Sometimes it is a better question. Sometimes it is a small adjustment in position that changes the entire outcome. I was watching a coaching breakdown about quarterback footwork. Coach Mike McDaniel, the head coach of the offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers, he had a press conference, and this was a few weeks ago, and he talked about the details were small, almost invisible to a casual viewer about his quarterback's footwork. And his very exquisite, detail-specific analysis on Justin Herbert's footwork on keeping him from throwing, it dawned on me as I was writing this letter. He went into which foot is forward, how the quarterback stands in shotgun. He started giving examples about Brett Favre, Tom Brady, how they were the first quarterbacks. I believe he said that pretty much they chose a certain foot that most quarterbacks, that was original to how other quarterbacks previously done it. He also talked about how the timing of the body affects the timing of the throw, how one adjustment at the base can change rhythm, speed, and access. That is leverage. The casual person watches the ball. The serious person studies the foot, Coach Mike McDaniel. Because sometimes the advantage is not found in doing more. Sometimes the advantage is found in standing differently before you even begin. Sometimes not taking on what has always been done. That is true in sports. That is true in business. That is true in writing. That is true in personal evolution. That is true in science. I actually was watching a kinesiology distinguished lecture, and the professor, he actually pretty much said the exact same thing about how the students of today has to question and not just go on with what was always being done, because sometimes what has always been done, this is second, it can fall into second ignorance, because what has always been done to these students or how they have been taught was more than likely probably not the most productive, or if the productive way at all in the beginning. Example, there was a student, a mother, she talked about how she did not like how taking away recess from her kids if they were acting up was a good thing. And I thought about that, and I completely agree with her, and the professor agreed with her, but to the professor's knowledge, that is something that kinesiologists or exercise scientists, they're not going to really have much control over, no matter how much they debate with the board, the school, the public education, because they have no interest in changing that at all. And the fact of the matter is that the argument is that kids are being trained, are being taught at a very young age that exercise is more of a privilege. Moving your body is more of a privilege, and people in exercise science in the kinesiology field, they want to change that. They want to change the illusion that exercising and moving your body and training or working out, it doesn't have to have this perception that it's taxing, that it's hard work, or that it doesn't have to be fun. It has to be suffering. It has to be like pathos, which pretty much means in Greek suffering. So it doesn't have to be that way. And some people, they restrain from that. This goes a little bit to behavioral. There was a behavioral economic studies on this and psychology studies on this. Is that the people that they have this mentality, they have this perception on that, it's human nature. You're going to want to shy away from something that is good for you, but it doesn't feel good to you. So you will be more committed to things that are more pleasurable to you, but they're not good for you. So sometimes the advantage, like I said, is not found in doing more. The advantage is found in standing differently before you begin. And that is a decision. That is something that you're going to have to take up on yourself. Most people want a massive transformation while ignoring the small position that keeps producing the same result. They want more motivation, more information, more inspiration, more time, more confidence, more clarity. But the deeper question is often more uncomfortable. What is your current position costing you? What angles are you operating from? What friction have you accepted as normal? What small adjustment would create more leverage? By the time you become an adult, your life is full of things that do not belong to you, opinions you inherited, fears you absorbed, habits you repeated until they felt like identity, ways of speaking that were never chosen, ways of thinking that were never examined, definitions of success, masculinity, money, work, education, relationships, and discipline that may have been installed before you were conscious enough to reject them. And after enough repetition, you forget something dangerous. You forget this may stir people the wrong way, what I'm about to say. But you forget that you can quit. Not quit your future. Let me be very clear on that. Not quit your responsibility. Not quit the standard. But quit the things that were never yours. Quit certain ways of thinking. Quit certain ways of speaking. Quit certain ways of reacting. Quit certain identities that were built from pain, environment, culture, fear, imitation, and survival. There was a line often attributed to Dostoevsky, I always say this line all the time, that says he would rather be wrong in his own way than right in someone else's. That line matters because most people are not even wrong in their own way. They are borrowing someone else's life, someone else's fear, someone else's limits, someone else's script, and then calling it reality. At some point, you have to ask yourself, what am I still carrying that has nothing to do with me? What am I still obeying that does not deserve authority over my life? What am I calling responsibility when it is really delay? This is where quitting becomes sacred. Start quitting now. Quit the dead language. Quit the inherited fear. Quit the false identity. Quit the need to explain your life to people who have not earned access to your inner architecture. But there is another side to this. Quitting does feel good. The more you quit, the more you want to quit. That is the danger. So quit responsibly. If you are not careful, you could turn quitting into avoidance. You can quit pressure, quit standards, quit difficulty, quit the very system that was trying to make you stronger. So the real art is not quitting everything. The real art is knowing what to quit and what to obey. That is the tension. And that is where this letter, or this video, because I'm reading off my letter, really begins. Because most people do not need a better system. They need a cheaper one. Yes. And it took me a while to really get to this point. Someone who's really came from a very athletic, strong background, played physical sports entire life, stayed in the weight room, stayed training, just rah my entire childhood and adult life. I had to also realize that as me building businesses and as me taking more of the artistic and writing approach now in my life, I have to discipline myself. I've always had to discipline myself, but now it's a different type of discipline. As I wake up in the morning, as I'm writing my newsletters, my posts, my books, and the type of lifestyle that I'm living right now that I'm not too happy with is that I have to reduce friction for me to stay consistent of what I'm doing. So gets along what I'm talking about is this is an alignment of what I am pushing, the idea that most people don't need better systems. They just need a cheaper one. Not cheaper in quality, cheaper in psychological cost. Every system, everything in life has a price. The price may be time, energy, attention, boredom, discomfort, repetition, or the quiet humiliation of realizing you are not as disciplined as you have imagined. That is where most people start looking for another system. Not because the current system is false or wrong, actually, but because the current system has finally started charging them. Perhaps you're not mature enough to be disciplined to that system, to your system. A new system feels like progress. It gives you the emotional reward of beginning again without requiring the pain of continuing. You get to feel intelligent, organized, and strategic without being forced to confront the gap between what you know and what you actually do. That is why planning can become addictive. Planning gives you a clean identity. Execution gives you feedback. Planning lets you imagine the future. Execution introduces you to the current version of yourself. This is where personal evolution becomes economic. The question is not only what is the right thing to do, the deeper question is what is the cost of doing it? And why am I refusing to pay it? Sometimes the system is not broken. Sometimes the cost is too high. The first action is too large. The environment has too much friction. The reset after failure feels too shameful. The schedule is built for a version of you that does not exist yet. So you miss once, then twice, then the system becomes evidence against you instead of architecture for you. That is bad design. A real system must account for failure. Not because failure is the goal, but because return is the proof. The system that changes you is not the one that only works when your life is perfect. It is the one you could return to after you miss. I am saying this because I missed a day. And sometimes I miss days. Sometimes I would not post. Sometimes I would not record. Sometimes I would not execute the way I said I would. Told myself I would. And I hate that. It kills me. Because it is a part of my identity. I hate that I keep missing moments like that because I know what I am building. I know what I want. I know the standard that I am aiming for. But hating the miss does not automatically make the system better. Sometimes shame makes the system heavier. And if the system gets heavier, return becomes more expensive. That is the mistake. The answer is not to emotionally punish myself into consistency. The answer is to study the miss like data. What made the right action too expensive yesterday? Was I tired? Was the task too large? Was the post not ready? Was the environment wrong? Was the first step unclear? Was the reset too slow? That is applied empiricism. Test reality, study the feedback, correct the motion, and return sharper. The do effect is not about pretending I never miss, it is about making the return faster every time I do. That is the real standard. Not perfection. Return. Because the person who returns quickly becomes dangerous. The person who returns quickly does not let one missed day become a missed identity. He does not let delay become personality. He does not let yesterday's failure become today's permission slip. This is why I am learning to reduce the friction, lower the entry point, make the first action smaller, make the reset faster, make the environment easier, make the cost of beginning so low that avoidance becomes more expensive than execution. That is how you build like an economist. You do not just ask, what should I do? You ask, what price is this behavior refusing to pay? Then you redesign the system until the right action becomes the cheaper action. This is also why I use systems to organize my life. For years, I have used a task on app on my phone to document daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly goals. It helps me see the architecture of what I am building. It lets me track what I said matters. It gives me a place to mark what was finished and what was not. I am not talking about this because I think everyone should copy my exact system. I am talking about it because this is a live building platform that I am using in between these apps, like with AI, with Google Docs, and with some of these other apps. I am connecting all of them every single day as I'm building, as I'm chasing the highest version of myself and building businesses. So this is not the finished product. It will never be a finished product. This is the laboratory. I use the world as my laboratory. A lot of people say you need to focus on one thing. Pick a niche. Stay narrow. Don't do too much. There is wisdom in that. I will not neglect that. But there is also a lazy version of that advice that gets repeated by people who do not understand certain kinds of minds. Some people are not built to be shallow generalists. Some people are synthesizers. Some people are deep generalists. Some people have to learn across fields because their work is not one narrow thing. Their work is integration. But here is the discipline. You cannot let your interests become a swarm. You have to filter them through priority. That is what I have been learning. I do not have to quit every interest. I have to structure them. That is why I have been filtering my life through my 5 pillars. I have been talking about this a lot lately. Health, energy, wealth, money, and sovereignty. That's my priority. That is why I have been clarifying my main skill stack. I just created this. What is the most important skill stack for me to master? Media, AI, automation, anatomy and body work, writing, and product building. I build from there. I stack from there, I should say. That is why I keep returning to the same question. What actually moves my life forward? What creates leverage? What strengthens the pillars? What increases skill? What can be turned into value? What can become a post, a letter, a product, a system, a method, a book? I'm writing a few books right now. Software. I'm building a software right now, or a tool. Because the goal is not to collect interest, the goal is to convert life into leverage. This is also part of why I am building Axis, which is my bodywork brand. Axis is the body specific expression of this same philosophy. It is a live educational study of the human body through anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, bodywork, movement, the study of movement, kinesiology, and real-world application. The body is not just a collection of isolated parts. It is a system. A person may feel pain in one area, but that does not always mean the problem begins there. The body compensates. It transfers force. It hides weakness. It organizes around dysfunction until the dysfunction becomes normal. That is why I believe in studying the human body as a whole. Not as detached pieces, as relationships. Axis exists to study those relationships and turn them into education, treatment, awareness, and better living. You can read and subscribe to the Axis letters on Substack. Just type in Axis letters. Or you can just subscribe to my Substack, Dante Taviantz, which is I attach my letters to my videos. They're also in the description. You can subscribe to Dante Taviantz and you'll see my other newsletters, which is mainly Axis letters, on there as well. But the broader Dante Taviantz brand is the larger operating system. Axis is about optimized health and body knowledge. The Do Effect, which is one of the books that I am writing, is about applied empiricism and execution. My personal brand is about personal evolution as a whole. Methods, strategies, systems, books, software, tools, products. A life built in public and refined in real time. That is why I am also thinking seriously about the hard sciences, physics, biology, chemistry, anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, and the physical laws underneath life are not random additions. They are part of the foundation. If I am going to build Axis, become a better body worker, possibly become a chiropractor, understand the body, understand technology, understand systems, and build products that actually help people, then I need stronger foundations. But this is where I have to be careful. Studying everything can become another form of avoidance. So the standard cannot be study everything at once. The standard has to be integration. The hard sciences must feed the pillars. They must feed Axis. They must feed the writing. They must feed the products. They must feed the second brain. They must feed execution. Otherwise, they become another impressive distraction. This is why I'm interested in building a second brain with tools like AI. Obsidian notes, documents, transcripts in my own writing. Not because the tool itself is the answer, but because the right system can help capture, connect, and compound what I am already learning. But again, the tool is not the transformation. The system is not the transformation. The execution is the transformation. A second brain means absolutely nothing if the first brain keeps avoiding the work. So I keep bringing it back to the lowest friction action. That's the best way to get things started. That's the best way to take action. Low friction. When I am tired, unclear, overwhelmed, or in that strange state where I know I should be doing something but do not feel like doing anything, I need a default. So I created this default. Just did. Not a complicated plan at all. A default. For me, that default is write, fight, act. Plain and simple. Stupid as that. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Write means return to the page. Put language around the chaos. Turn thought into structure. Turn experience into value. Turn confusion into something visible enough to refine. Fight means train. Move the body. Build the warrior. Practice martial skill. Develop physical command. Do not let the body become a passive vehicle for an ambitious mind. Act means train the craft. Practice presence, voice, emotion, imagination, character, the ability to embody truth under pressure. These three are low friction for me because they are close to who I am becoming. I can write anywhere. I can train some aspect of fighting almost anywhere. I can practice acting, voice, observation, or emotional truth almost anywhere. Write, fight, act. That is not the whole system, but it is the emergency switch. When everything feels too heavy, return to the actions that are too simple to negotiate with. I promise you, you will get things done. One paragraph, one round, one monologue, that is enough to create movement. And movement matters because personal evolution has physics. A person does not stay still because they lack slogans. They stay still because the force required to move feels greater than the force keeping them in place. So reduce the friction, create momentum, lower resistance, apply force in the right direction. That is the physics of return. And this is where the economic law and the physics law meet. Economics asks, what is the cost? Physics asks, what is the friction? Empiricism asks, what happened when you tested it? Together, they create a method. If the cost is too high, lower the entry point. If the friction is too heavy, change the environment. If the movement is dead, apply a smaller force. If the system failed, study the feedback. If you missed yesterday, return today. That is how you add life to your days. Not by waiting for a perfect version of yourself. And not by building a system that only works when you feel inspired. Not by collecting more knowledge while your life remains unchanged, but by making the right action cheaper than avoidance. By turning experience into feedback, by turning feedback into correction, by turning correction into a better system, by turning the system into a life. You cannot add more days to your life by force, but you can add more life to your days by design. And that design begins with one question. What is the smallest action I can take right now that returns me to the person I said I was becoming? Write, fight, act. Test reality, study the feedback, correct the motion, return sharper. That is the do effect. So, I thank you all so much for watching. That's all I have for you right now. We'll be back very soon. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You can subscribe to the Dante Taviantz Substack newsletter. And you can also, from there, you can subscribe to Axis, which is my bodywork brand that I'm slowly building up as well. And that is all I have. Have a great day.